167 days in space, over 38 hours performing spacewalks, traveling more than 6 million miles, making hundreds of orbits about the Earth. But how did I get there? This is the making of an ordinary spaceman. I'm Clayton C. Anderson, and these are my stories.
Throttle back to 67% of rated performance, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it breaks through the sound barrier.
As I said before in a previous podcast, being an astronaut and flying into space is very much a team sport. And the phrase a lot of people like to say is that space flight, space missions is the ultimate team sport. And so sticking with that team sports theme, I met a gentleman years ago in a very special and unique place. The place was League City Intermediate School on the second floor of a basketball gym. And of course, during that time that I met this gentleman, I was wearing black polyester pants, black shoes, a black and white striped polyester shirt, and I had a whistle around my neck. And I was running up and down the court with a bunch of young kids, I believe 7th graders. And there was a gentleman about 6'4", standing on the sidelines and wearing the colors of the home team. This gentleman, a wonderful man, it was very loud and vociferous as he yelled at me after one of my perfectly accurate and timely officiating calls. And he said, "Hey, have you ever played this game?" Which is, that's not a new phrase for a referee to hear from a basketball coach. But as I sauntered over carefully within range of this 6'4" gentleman, I said, "Yeah, I guess I did." And he said, "Well, hey, we play here every Sunday at about 6 o'clock. Come on and join us." And with that, I would like to introduce my next podcast guest, who, like me, is an avid lover of sports, an incredible athlete. Listeners, please welcome my dear friend, David Ward. Hi, David. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How you doing, Commander?
I'm good, Doctor. And as we go here, I want you to put your embellishment on the story I just told, and perhaps maybe you can relate to people why I call you the Doctor.
Well, I'm called the Doctor because on a Sunday evening when the commander, now we didn't call him Commander early, we being the coaches who played on Sunday evenings, but the coaches who were who were coaching realized that he was an athlete and he probably did know the game. So that's why we asked him if he could play. So I believe on a Sunday evening, I may have been playing well. And I think at one point, Clay, then Commander later, started calling me the Doctor for some of my flashy Dr. J moves.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
And I believe that stuck for a long time. And then when Clay became an astronaut, he wasn't Clay any longer. We started calling him the Commander.
And so today, David and I are very close. We play a lot of golf these days. And so Clay and David don't get used very frequently. Usually it's the Doctor and the Commander. So
Roger, he's in Commander, over.
Gotcha.
So, Doctor, you are a lifetime teacher. And as I was thinking about the podcast, I thought it might be interesting if you would share an answer to the question of, talk about coaches who influenced you, but I'm interested in coaches that influenced you in both good ways and bad ways.
Okay.
Pressure's on you now, because I know a lot of these guys.
The pressure is on me. I'll go all the way back to my high school days. My father wasn't in the picture in my high school days. He was rather ill when I was a sophomore in high school, and the coaches kind of took his place in my life, and they influenced me, they guided me, kept me out of trouble, kept me in sports, gave me a goal, gave me goals, and that flash forward, if you will, 38 years, 40 years later, I've been involved with teaching and coaching for 38 years, been retired for a couple of years, but I still maintain some contact through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which I've been involved with for about 38 years. So there's the good side of the coaches who influenced me in a very positive, good way. And then probably the loud, vociferous coach that Clay was talking about, because the commander would never do that.
Yeah.
Clay was talking about, I probably took a few hints from the television and watching some coaches, and then working with a couple of coaches. Now I'm going to keep the names out of this, Clay, who I worked with, and they were my bosses. They were very loud and stomping and trying to get calls to go their way. So I may have taken some of their attributes into the profession, but my wife cleared that up later, and I settled back down and had a good coaching career. Thanks for bringing all that up, Commander.
Well, how about, let's keep going on that theme a little bit. So how about so the coaches that were good influences on you, that what kind of things did they teach you about not just coaching, but about faith, about life, about relationships, right? Because here you are, when I met you, you're coaching junior high kids, which is a heck of a lot different than later in our careers when you were coaching high school kids. And of course, for those that don't know, David was quite an athlete in college, quite a basketball star. And so you have that understanding at that level too. So of some of these good coaches, what kind of things did they teach you to bring to the table?
Well, probably one of the biggest lessons ever would have been perseverance. My high school coach in northern Michigan, a little town, we didn't exactly have all of the athletes from the big cities, but Coach Lear never didn't bother him, never gave up on us. So some perseverance from him, a lifelong mentor of mine. I'm still in touch with him as he's in his mid 80s. We talk often throughout the year about life, how we're doing. Faith-wise, I had a Spanish teacher in high school who was our school's cross-country coach. I didn't run cross-country, but he also helped with the basketball program. So he got to know me a little bit and asked me, I think it was my sophomore year in high school, if I would be interested in this new organization called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Coach Spencer was his name, and I just got to visit with him not too long ago, telling him about where he had led me years ago into working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or actually just being involved with. And then once I got out of college and started coaching, I started working with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So faith-wise, perseverance, relationship. I told you those two relationships. When basketball celebrated its 100th anniversary years ago, I reached out to every basketball coach that had ever coached me with a letter, and received letters back from them. And it was so neat developing those relationships with those men who now have influenced me throughout my career.
See, I love that answer, David, because when you say the word perseverance, that relates directly to me as well, right? Because over my astronaut career, as I was not yet the commander, it was because it took me 15 applications over 15 years to earn the accolade of being called commander by my basketball friends. So, perseverance is something that we can all learn from. And that's why I think this analogy is so good between space flight being the ultimate team sport, but also what I think is important is you're one of those people in my life that helped build me or helped shape and mold me into the person that I've become today. So tell the listeners anything that you can think of or that you'd like to relate with respect to you and I over our, it's been 1984 to today. So however many years that is, anything that you would like to share that you found unique, interesting, crazy. For example, right, you attended one of my launches, right? So
Two.
of my launches. So how, maybe perhaps that's something to share.
Well, let's go ahead and go back a little bit to our junior high days. I was involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes then, and not only did we play basketball, we shared some faith moments, because I asked you at some time or another to come and speak to our FCA kids, because I felt that you had a relationship with God, and through just talking with you, living life with you, and we'll get to that in a minute. I realized your faith in God was strong, and so it was really good for our kids to hear from an astronaut, or at that time a candidate, about your faith walk, as these young kids are experiencing the world. It was pretty good for them to have some background on some people and in other areas besides just coaches. Well, then at one point, I believe we were across the very short hallway from each other in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Early in our career, and somebody would play the piano late at night.
Not late at night. Come on.
Probably after work. And so my roommate and I kind of pounded on your door, and lo and behold, it's you. And we had already begun to know each other a little bit. And golly, I gotta say it, you're a pretty decent piano player, pretty decent singer. And as we progressed in our relationship, my wife, now fiance then, and I asked you to sing in our wedding. So you don't just have anybody do something like that. It's got to be somebody who you're very close with and share life with. And that's why I mentioned that. So you sang in our wedding, then you sang in my nephew's wedding, my one niece's wedding, my other niece's wedding, and then my daughter's wedding. I have two daughters. One decided to get married off in Cancun on a what do they call it, destination wedding. So you didn't get to sing there, but by golly, you sang at the other one. So I mean, that's family. You're more than a friend, more than an acquaintance. We grew up together, grew apart, and grew back together, just like brothers do. And gosh, then I go to the high school at Clear Falls High School, and lo and behold, the commander's son is coming to that high school, and he's involved with our Fellowship of Christian Athletes. In fact, he's one of my leaders at Clear Falls High School. And again, I prevail upon the commander now to come and speak with us, our Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he did that. And then, like Clay said, commander said, I got invited to both of his launches, once with my brother's family and my family, all of us there. And then on the second time as part of, I might tear up a little bit.
Oh, it's okay. We understand,
okay,
brother.
as part of your family to be there for the second launch.
Mhm.
So, gosh, I know I've kind of skipped around a little bit, but there's quite a bit of it.
Well, tell us what it was like to, let's go to my first launch and tell us what it was like, that experience. What did you feel? What were you thinking? What did you all, your family at that time, talk about as things were coming to fruition, if you will?
Well, first of all, we didn't get to see you very much, and we didn't understand that. We'd never been to one. We did get to see a little bit, but not much. I think it was really just across the ditch.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
or the street. Yeah.
Yeah, the street. But we did get to spend time with Susan and the kids. And if I'm right, my brother and his wife, my nephew and his wife, and their kids were there, and my two nieces and their husbands and their kids were there. I mean, pretty much all of that side of my family had come down for the launch, so we got to spend family time. And admittedly, we were super excited, but also a little bit anxious.
Yeah, so was I.
Well, I bet you were. But you want to talk about some heavy duty prayer time.
Yeah.
The family spent some heavy duty prayer time because, man, you were going up in a red hot tin can, and we were a little worried about you.
Well, yeah, let me share with the listeners when David talks about the wave across the street. As astronauts were stuck in quarantine, once I left the house in Houston, I went from my home to the crew quarters facility at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. I spent several days there until we flew to the Cape. And then at the Cape, we're still under quarantine in the crew quarters. And the one time we got to meet our what we call extended family, which was my relatives, David, his family, that were invited to get on a bus and drive out toward the launch pad. So they get lots of great photos with the shuttle in the background. But where it used to be a ditch, but now it's on a road. And so it's called the wave across the ditch. And all these people from each crew member has their entourage of folks. And the closest we can get to them is the road, right? We can't be across, we can't shake their hand, we can't hug, right? Because we don't want to get sick or get some virus that we take into space. So it's a very emotional time for them, but it's a very emotional time for me on that day, seeing all these people that I love and that care about me, and of course, David, Sutton, and Cole were, I don't know, Cole was 10 and Sutton was 6. And I hadn't even seen Sutton since I left the house in Houston, but at least Cole got to participate. So it was an anxious moment and an emotional moment for me too. So now compare that launch with your family, and did anything change when you came to the second one and you were part of our families?
Oh, yeah. First of all, to be asked to be part of your family at the second launch because of your mother's passing in between. I got to fill in that spot, and that was pretty overwhelming. But now learning the inner workings a little bit of the launch stuff, when I'm told to show up at a condominium at 4 a.m, pitch black, and these vans all kind of swoop in, very cloak and daggerish, and I board the van, and off we go.
Only the best for you, my friend. Only the best.
Oh my goodness. That was, I had no clue about all of that. Maybe a little bit when I had to get a physical back in Houston.
Oh yeah.
To be part of your family, because I couldn't be sick and give you any virus.
Right.
So because now this time I get to be close to you, and actually we got to hug and talk and so forth, because I was healthy and had been gone through the protocols. So the vans swoop in, and we are heading out to the breakfast before you guys and gals head off into the vast unknown. Although you know about it, we don't. That was, gosh, otherworldly. I mean, here I am, just a little old basketball coach from League City, Texas, and I am meeting astronauts from around the world, breaking bread with them. One of their last, I think it was your last meal with everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
With everybody. I know that was in the morning, but to be introduced as part of your family, it just solidified the fact that you and I are tied together, man. I hope you're okay with that.
Absolutely. I'm okay with that.
Most of the time, except when you beat me at golf. Wait a minute, that never
That's
happened.
never happened. I knew that was coming. I could have bet $1,000 that I knew that was coming.
$1,000.
But one day I will. No. Well, it's interesting, David, it's coming up. The anniversary is coming up. And what our listeners may not realize is that we did all of this on Easter, or at least, I don't know exactly Easter. I think it was maybe the day before, based on the fact that we were going to launch at 4 a.m. So we were going to be up at night on Easter morning or whatever it was. But the anniversary's coming, and you are my brother, and I think
buddy,
absolutely amazing. And that leads me to another question I'd like to ask you, if I may. So tell us a little bit, and I'm not trying to make a plug here or anything, but tell us a few of the heroes in your life. As a kid, I had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Back then was Lou Alcindor, and I remember he was the first autograph that I ever sought, and I wrote to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I had no idea what address to send it to, and it made it to Milwaukee, and it made it to someone who then sent me a black and white picture of Lou Alcindor that was autographed. So tell us about some of the heroes in your life.
I have I'll save the best for last.
Okay.
So Lou Alcindor, UCLA. Growing up in Michigan, you would think that I would have been a Michigan fan, Michigan State fan. I was a basketball fan, and I fell in love with UCLA.
Yeah.
And
a lot of us did, right?
Yeah, no kidding. And I'll get to the big reason why UCLA, but Lou Alcindor was big, of course. But I made, which was a huge bet for me back in 1971, maybe, of $5 with one of my buddies, that UCLA would win the national championship the year after Alcindor graduated. He took that bet. Well, and flash forward, they did it again.
Yeah.
Okay, with Rowe and Wicks and Patterson and a couple of guards that could really play, but the coach was the same, Johnny Wooden.
Yep.
The man, the myth, the legend. There's no myth about it. He is a legend. I finally got to meet him. He was one of my heroes. And I finally got to meet him at a coaching clinic well after he had retired and he was no longer doing clinics, but he was there signing autographs. And man, I stood in line and I went up and I told him that story real quick, and he looked at me and said, "Son, that wasn't a real good bet after Alcindor graduated."
That's awesome.
So he was a longtime hero, Johnny Wooden, coaching, and one of the reasons I wanted to coach. My own coach, told you before, Coach Lear, kind of took over when my dad was gone.
Quickly tell them, before you go past Coach Lear, tell them what happened to you in your hometown high school here a couple years ago.
I was honored to be brought into or voted into the High School Hall of Fame at my high school up in Gladwin, Michigan. And in my acceptance speech, I did go over all of my coaching heroes, including Coach Wooden, my high school football coach. Back then, coaches stayed forever at the schools they were at. So he had retired at that point, but was still around. And my basketball coach, my baseball coach, Now, my baseball coach was there. The basketball coach was there. In fact, he introduced me. And Coach Spencer, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes coach, he was still there. And so I got to honor them with becoming honored into the High School Hall of Fame.
Congratulations. Excellent choice.
Well, thanks. But number two hero probably on my list would, and I don't have to brown nose you, Clay. You're a hero to me.
Oh, thank you.
Well, the 15 years, that you never gave up. You never gave up on me. I never gave up on you. We weren't always close during all of those 15 years. We were close at the beginning, and then close as you became the astronaut and got to go up, and we've been close now, doing a lot of things with our families, your son, your daughter, and you with my kids. I mean, it's just been just a glorious, praise God ride. And then, number one hero, my brother Dwayne.
Yes, sir. I could have bet
Big
1,000
D.
on that too, David.
Bubba, you can relate whatever you want to with your getting to know him. I know you went and stayed with him for a short while when you were going through some stuff, and gosh, and then you end up singing at his kids' weddings.
Yeah.
So our families are just tied.
Yep.
And I thank God for that often. Probably need to thank God for that more often. So my brother filled in, not only as a brother, as a dad, as a lifelong friend. We see each other often, spend time together often, email each other every Monday morning, probably call too often, according to my wife. But that's there's the heroes.
That's an awesome list, David. I'm honored to be on it. I've not met John Wooden, or I did not have the opportunity to meet John Wooden, but I sure had the opportunity to meet and know Dwayne Ward. And I can only echo the words and the sentiment of his brother David, because Dwayne is an amazing man, an amazing giver, an amazing mentor, and just an all-around great guy. And the Ward family epitomizes family to me. And the fact that I consider myself a part of your family and you consider yourself a part of mine is probably more blessing than I could have ever asked for back when I was a young kid growing up in Ashland, Nebraska. So, David, thank you for being on our podcast, and thank you for being the man that you are, and the family man and the Christian that you are. And I look forward to our next golf outing. I get 4 mulligans. If I even have a hopes of beating you, I need 4 mulligans per 9, and perhaps a gimme putt on every hole.
Well, with that being said, we'll play for $100.
Well,
Okay,
I think we need to cut this podcast short. Over. Well, I love you,
Hey.
man.
I'm just gonna echo that. I love you, man, and Godspeed.
Hey, kiss your wife square on the lips and tell her it's from me, will you?
Okay, and by the way, Susan left the studio there.
Yeah.
She's here now.
That's good. I like how you're picking up on the comedy aspect here. That's really
There
good.
we go. There we go. Love you, man.
Thank you again, and love you too, and appreciate you being on with us. Please rate, review, follow, subscribe, as it helps others find my podcast. Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my dear friend Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller fame for the use of his talents and music.
A Hurrdat Media Production.